Hello, how's it going? Uh, so some of y'all might know what is happening. Kind of had a crazy couple of weeks, to say the least, and wanted to just make a video and explain, with what's happening, what happened, and what's going on from here. I'm making this outside. It's loud with the train, but wanted to make it and show you what's up. So, some of y'all may have my eye look a little weird. So a couple weeks ago, I was working and I couldn't look at the screen anymore. It was weird. I was like, ow, like my eyes were hurting really bad and getting a migraine. I was like, wow, I've never experienced a real migraine before. I've had headaches because with eyes and changing eyes and all that. I already got headaches, but this was really hurting a lot. And so my manager let me go home early and just see if I can just sleep it out or something. And so I did that, and it was still just migraine. Nothing worked. Ibuprofen, Excedrin. We did all that. It still didn't work. So I called my doctor, uh, and we had like a video chat. And I was just saying, it just hurts. I can't. Anything I do, it's not working. And so he suggested I come in to his office the next day, and he'll give me some Toradol or something like that, where it's like a super ibuprofen type thing. And so we did that. We went the next day. We did that, and that helped for about a couple hours. And then the migraine was back, and so I kind of slept through the night and call the doctor again, saying, "Hey, it's still hurting." And I think that was like a Wednesday or a Thursday, and so he just said, "You have to just go to the emergency room now." So I went to the emergency room. They gave me the cocktail that kills your migraine, and that helped. That seemed like that was working. So maybe it was just like a super migraine, and but they suggested that I do some scans to make sure that there's nothing there. I was like, I'm fine with that. I'm whatever. So we did a CT scan, and the CT scans are not the best, but they do show stuff that's in there. And they did find something in my head. And I said, well, that's crazy to think, that there's something in my head. And so they wanted to do an MRI to find out more specifically what it's doing. And it was next to my pituitary gland, which is inside your, the middle of your skull, if you will. And so they did an MRI, and they sure did. They found a 2 to 3 centimeter uh, size tumor in my head, and I was, kind of scary to find out you have a tumor, and you going. They tried to. Oh, there was a train going by, so they tried to tell you that it's going to be okay, and I think that was Friday, and that's scary to see that, and I, um, it's kind of a crazy time right now. We're selling the house, we're building a house, we're trying to get out, and all this stuff, and of course, I get a tumor. Just throw that in there, and so finding out I had a tumor, it was actually going up and hitting my optic nerve of my brain, and I slowly was losing vision. I couldn't see, and not only was I losing vision, my eyes were not in sync anymore. I was having more of a floaty eye in my right eye, and so I had to just have my eyes closed uh, for days. I couldn't open my eyes, any sort of light. I tried to be with family. I couldn't. I just couldn't be there. It was hurting so bad. Migraines. It was like having uh, having the worst migraine times 10. It was, and it felt like four migraines all at once, four different pinpoints, and just pulsating. And I couldn't. I was throwing up. I couldn't keep food down. I couldn't. I couldn't even drink. I drank like a little bit of water, and I threw it up. I couldn't hold anything down. So we met with a neurosurgeon, and he gave me steroids because steroids helps with swelling, not narcotics or Excedrin or ibuprofen or anything. And he didn't want any extra bleeding from the tumor if I take that type of stuff because it thins your blood. And so they gave me steroids that helped, but my eyes still hurt a lot. It was like knives were in my eyes. It was I couldn't do anything. And so basically, so we scheduled the um, surgery. So I had to get the tumor out. So at this point, it's too large for medicine because if it's millimeters, they made this some medicine that can actually take care of it. But if it's centimeters, it has to come out. And so that was the decision to make. So they scheduled it like a week and a half after meeting with the neurosurgeon. But the neurosurgeon said if there's a change, so I don't know what it means so close, if there's a change in what happened, like with my eyes, especially if I go even more blind, which was happening, um, if my vision gets worse, it will become emergent, and they'll need to take it out as soon as possible. And so, literally the next day, it became worse. I was getting more and more blind, and so luckily, my wife, she's a wonderful person, and she called the doctor because I was in so much pain. So she called the doctor and said, he's gotten worse, worse, and worse, and worse. And so I went on that Tuesday, the 18th. I went into IMC and they took it out. I had emergency brain surgery. So add that to the list, right? Go from lucky old me to emergency brain surgery, which at that point I didn't care. I was in so much pain. It was like, whatever, just take it out of me. It was hurting so bad. And so, uh, I mean, I imagine like I was looking this way and this way with my eyes, droopy face. It was the worst thing that was happening to me, and just moans and yeah, please, just whatever, just you know. And when with COVID, it made it 10 times worse with COVID because my wife couldn't be with me, and she's coherent, and I'm not coherent, and so they're asking me these questions, and I can't think of anything because I'm just in pain. So the COVID, just on top of everything else, just made it 10 times worse because someone coherent needs to be with me because I'm not coherent. I'm in death pain. I'm to the point where I just don't care. Just get it out of me. Rip my head open. Just and so they did that. I went to the OR and I laid down on the operating table and then I snap at the finger. I woke up and uh, I woke up and in ICU, neuro ICU. I was there, and it was crazy. I my nose was stuffed. I was like, "What? My nose is in pain." And of course, they had to like cut here. As you can see, they took the stitches out today, and they had to basically give me a nose job. They fixed my deviated septum in my nose, which I didn't even know I had. I didn't know I had. So they fixed that. They had to then puncture up through my so here's my head. They had a puncture up through my sinuses up at the top where there's a flap of meat, if you will, between your sinuses, your nose, and your brain. So they had to go through that to get a 3 centimeter tumor out of my pituitary gland. And that was on my pituitary gland that was growing up into my brain. So, so it went from that to being in ICU. And so being in ICU, uh, it was really hard. It was really hard. I had to regain my vision, which I was grateful that I survived. Emergency brain surgery, you don't know what's going to happen, honestly. And but luckily I had some great doctors, I had a ENT. I mean, all the doctors involved, everything. Just think of everything. Uh, uh, ENT, imaging doctors. I mean, brain surgeons, neurosurgeons. I mean, just the whole thing. Everything was involved. So I woke up and my nose is stuffed full of gauze. There's stents. There's stitches. There's everything in my nose to stop, and there's also just this big like swab of gauze on the outside of my nose to catch literally blood coming from the surgery. So my sinuses were probably full of blood. It was just constant blood coming out of my nose, and I couldn't blow my nose. I wasn't allowed to go. I couldn't do that. Uh, so I had to just breathe through my mouth, which was new. I don't do that. I'm a nose breather, not a mouth breather. And so my mouth was dry all the time. And so, so I'm in the hospital and just trying to just figure out what's going on. They're asking me these neuro questions constantly. Hey, where are you at? What's your name? What's your birthday? What's the date? Constantly asking me that to make sure that I'm not I'm not in a scary place. And so I'm coherent, and I was able to answer the questions just fine. Yeah, it's in August 2020. I don't know the exact date number. I don't know the uh, time either, but I know I have 4 kids. I know I'm married. I know that I had surgery. They asked me why are you here? I said I had surgery on had a tumor in my head that they removed to something that would be coherent. Um, and so it was that just those neuro questions all the time. They want me to squeeze, move my legs. They wanted me to do all that type of stuff to, oh sorry, make sure that I'm coherent. I didn't, have any dramatic brain problems, but luckily I didn't. I was able to retain memory and know what's going on. So, and another thing is I knew they were going to do this, but they grafted fat out of this side of my stomach, or the fat layer, which I have plenty of. and put that as like they grafted that in at the top of my sinus thing uh, between the nose and the brain to get that strong again. So so yeah, they took some of that out. So I got a free fix my deviate septum and a skin graft, and so but I was really weak. I could barely walk. I could I was very restrictive what I could do. You know, any anything I had to let the nurse know. If I wanted to get up, I had to let them know. If I wanted to go to the bathroom, I had to let them know. I had a catheter that was the worst. I I had wires going everywhere. They're checking my heart, even my heart. They're checking lungs. They're checking everything. Because that could be a problem too. So it can go from bad to worse at any time in the ICU. And I had to walk. If I wanted to walk, I had to have a nurse with me. At first, I even had to have a physical therapist with me to make sure I could walk again, which I'm again grateful for. I couldn't walk without a walker, so it was like I was 107 years old for a couple of days. Um, you know, it was kind of a crazy time. I had a shower with somebody in there with me. Shower with the nurse in there. Just she's just like, you just do your thing. But I had to be very careful how I showered. I couldn't put water on my face. I couldn't wash my hair. I just had to like wash my legs and my arm, and I had IVs coming out of me, and so I couldn't like shower really. I just had to just make sure I sounded like felt like a regular person. And so uh, all that, and then the other problem. So here's just another problem on top of it. Since I was throwing up before the surgery, couldn't keep anything down. My sodium and potassium levels were critically low. Like I could have died because of I could have seizured on the operating table because my sodium levels were so low, critically low. Uh, it's like a point system. So think of it as I had my the normal is 1 point, like 135 point, which is the normal low. That's the lowest normal area you can be in. I was at 115 to 120. That is critically low sodium, and which is what your pituitary gland and your brain regulates. And then the problem on top of that is that a catheter, and my body just wanted to pee everything, pee out all my sodium, free water, everything. And so basically, I'm in the hospital, and they needed to do a series of tests on me to get my sodium up before I just start eating crackers and chips and nuts and all this stuff with high sodium stuff to get it back up. That they didn't want to, give me a bunch of salt tabs and say, okay, you're good. My body had to actually regulate itself at a normal sodium level and not just force it, because then it'll just go back down once I go home. And so, with a combination of different tests, at first they wanted me to drink all the water, just drink tons of water. You have to drink water. That would see if my body can hold free water, which it could not. I peed all that out with sodium. And then they said, you can't drink anything. You can't drink water, but you can drink juice and stuff. That's with juice, it has sodium in it, it has different things, so my body regulates it differently. Still, I was not getting up to what I should be with sodium. It was going back up slowly. It was 123, 124, 125, then it'll go back down, 124, 23. It was a constant battle to get it back up. But once it got up to about 129, 130, then I was able to leave ICU, but still had to get my sodium levels And my potassium, they just gave me potassium pills um, to get my potassium up. So whenever it dropped, I got a potassium pill. And while all this is going on, uh, I was getting shots in my stomach for uh, uh, so I don't get blood clots. It's because I'm just laying in a hospital bed or just sitting down most of the time. And thankful all the nurses. They're super busy. There's COVID. There's 100 plus extra people in there, whatever. And sorry about that, the train. And there's doctors from New York, or not doctors, nurses from New York City out here that were helping. I had a wonderful nurse from New York City who's really great, and he snuck me ice cream and stuff like that. But eating, I could eat anything I wanted. They're just like, you just can't drink. So and uh, and so my pituitary gland, just got attacked, and who knows how long that tumor's been in there because it was there for a while because I've I was having problems, health problems with. I just accept it as I'm getting old or whatever. But I had a tumor in there for a while, and not until it started growing out and causing me to go blind, I uh, really knew there was a tumor, which is kind of scary because you think you're just, oh, maybe it's just like hair loss in my chest, maybe just shirt rub, you know, I don't know. And and so and so I was in the hospital for 8 days. My sodium levels got up. Wanted just to go home so bad. Um, luckily, um, I was. They changed some of the visitor rules, so I was able to have two visitors, but they're dedicated visitors. They're not any visitors. So I chose my brother and my wife. So my wife made sacrifices to come see me. I was really, 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 really grateful that she did. It's nice to talk to somebody, not just watch TV all day and kind of just shuffle around and walk a little here and there. That was my life. I wasn't allowed to go outside. I wasn't allowed to do anything because of COVID. I was this room, hallway. And so I felt normal, mostly normal. Other than I still had the gauze in my nose and the stents in my nose, so I could not sleep as well. I had hospital sleep, and some of y'all probably know what that's like. Hospital sleep is the worst sleep. I could not sleep at all. Several nights I would just stay up all night, not an ounce of sleep, and the only sleep I got was when my brain just said, "You gotta get sleep," and I was conked out. And of course, the nurses wake you up to do something, and so they wake me up and we need to check your vitals or whatever, and I'm just like, just let me sleep. So, I was asleep. Just let me sleep. And but they have their job. They want to make sure that I'm doing okay and all that. So, and I got shots in my stomach. I had I had blood drawn, you know, 4 or 5 times a day. I had no sleep. I was exhausted. Um, the only thing I did have was a nice view out of my window. I was on the 14th floor when I was just in the regular hospital. Now in ICU, I was mostly still out of it and just looked outside, occasionally, but mostly just sat in a chair and watched TV. It's the only thing I could do. And um, so I also regained my vision. So a couple of 3 days after that, I regained vision and met with occupational therapists and all that to uh, make sure that it was still okay. So, um, so I left the hospital on a Wednesday, and still I went to the endocrinologist to go over my hormones and all that, and they're all shot. Your pituitary gland regulates all that. I also, I'll be meeting with endocrinologist probably for the rest of my life. Um, I have to meet with a neurosurgeon in 6 weeks. I'm on disability. you know, really grateful for my job. I have really great insurance. Really good insurance. Um, so it's still hard. So now the only thing I'm allowed to do is just sit and walk still, but at least I'm home. Um, so it's going to be a long journey, but yeah. So let me know if you have questions. I got the stents out today, and I took the stitches out of my nose today, so I was able to breathe for the first time in 2 weeks. No, it's a week and a half. But yeah, it was still hard to not breathe in the hospital for that long. So so that's the story up to this point. I still got recovery. I still got more doctor's appointments. I'm still not allowed to drive because of even though I see perfectly everything, but I'm not allowed to drive. I have to get permission from a occupational therapist to drive again, which I'll have to meet with soon, to go over that. But yeah, so everyone, I'm telling you, occupational therapist, physical therapist. Physical therapist already passed me off. I could walk just fine. They saw me walking. I was coherent. I was able to answer the neuro questions just fine. So all that, and you know, yeah, that's that's it. So I still have more to go. You know, and I don't. The other crazy thing is I'm taking some steroids and stuff. Well, it's more not really steroids, it's more just like a hormone for what my brain secretes anyway. So it's not like it's a special hormone, it's a natural hormone in me that I'm taking for pain. I guess it's for pain because I don't feel pain. You think emergency brain surgery, I would just be, no, I, I feel fine. I still gotta, so, so that's good. I also, uh, when I got home after getting the stents removed, I took a nap immediately. I was so tired. I haven't slept. I still haven't slept. I slept 2 3 hours every night with the stents because I could only breathe through my mouth. And sometimes while sleeping, my mouth would close. So I would be asleep and gasping for air because my mouth closed while sleeping. I didn't think I'd have to deal with that either, but that's just the way it was. So, but hopefully tonight I get a good night's sleep, breathing through my nose. Um, and so now I just want to thank everyone that helped. Lots of friends that gave meals. They didn't have to my family. They gave meals to my family, not me. I was in the hospital. They couldn't give it to me. They only had to give it to my family. I had my mother-in-law fly out to help out. I have my sister-in-law here, and so just so much help. So grateful. They don't have to do any of this, but they really want to help. Especially my wife. She's going so much. I mean, your husband brain surgery, and we're getting calls about selling the house and a pest control thing. It's like it's so ridiculous, you know, but that's just the way it goes. Um, Anyways, so that's it. Peace.